It only takes 90 days to reset your life. If you want to make a huge change in your life, then all you have to do is work hard for 3 months. There is a book that I would highly recommend right off the bat, and that is the 12-week year, allowing you to kind of think about it, compressing a year's worth of progress down to just a quarter. Imagine what you can get done then in a whole year if you have 4 of these 12-week years in this whole scheme of things. And the process of accelerating your growth throughout that time span is really simple, but it is still pretty hard at the same time. So let's get to it. Now, when you are trying to reset your life, you can't just do it in a week. Sure, you can make a big difference in one day, and continuous progress for 1 week is something you can pat yourself on the back for. Now, how long it takes to develop a habit is different across the scale. There's been a lot of different studies about how long it takes to form a habit, but let's just kind of rough it down to just 21 days like they talked about in the past. 3 weeks, cool. You built a new habit. Are you going to stick to it after a while still? Probably, but you need to kind of have more time for that proof, which is why 90 days is key. It takes a month to really start making kind of a change. It takes 2 months of consistency to really keep that change. And then finally, in that last 3 months, the third month, it is where you can actually see the change. And so, for example, I have not been super active in the last couple years, and I wanted to get back into my fitness journey. I have been working out since I was 15. I have a lot of experience. I've taught fitness for over a decade, so I have the ability to get back into it, but I never took advantage of that in the last half a decade, essentially. I had gained fat over COVID and just never lost it. I built a lot of muscle and tried to lose it, and I lost probably a little bit of fat, but I still basically kept my muscle and fat, and that was mainly due to diet and not working out enough and not working out hard enough. But in June of this year, I decided, it's time to make a change. I'm in a new environment, new place to live, and so I can go to a new gym and push for a new level, new version of me. Luckily, at the time, I had a little bit of spite to build off of, which is very helpful when you want to do a 90-day journey like this, to have a little bit of extra external fuel, but you don't have to have that. And so I got back into the gym due to that spite, and after a couple weeks, it dissipated, but I was able to keep that journey going because I was already pretty motivated to just get really jacked, and I wanted to get nice and strong. And the cool thing is about fitness is that your body remembers. And so over the course of basically the 2010s, from 2010 to 2020, I was working high reps, low weight, and just really building the endurance. I would do hundreds of reps for certain exercises, and honestly built a decent amount of size purely from that, even so from the superficial muscles down to even the deep muscles. And then in 2020 and onward, I was doing more explosive, let's say more bulky type exercises, heavier exercises, and I changed it up quite a bit, which is why I made some progress. But since I didn't keep it consistent enough, that's where I lost a lot of that progress, because I just didn't make enough effort. But in this journey in June and July, I was able to do both exercises once again. I was kind of interleaving the heavy and the high reps, and I was able to get back my strength from both endeavors. So I got my endurance back, and I got my overall just deep muscle and explosiveness back. And because of that, I also kept track of my nutrition a lot more deeply, got a lot more protein, decreased my calories tremendously, and I was able to lose 7% body fat in 40 days. And so, like I said, it takes about that 30 days to really kind of start making the progress. It takes that middle month to really have that consistency factor for you actually to make the progress stick, and then you finally don't see it until about that third month. And now I'm hitting that at the end of the third month. I think I'm actually past that point at the time of this recording, but really, like in August is when I finally started feeling it again. I was like, oh wow, I actually have made a lot of progress. I can feel my abs again. I can see my abs again. And I'm using this story, this anecdote, because I want it to be a visual representation of what it could look like. It doesn't have to be fitness, but fitness is one of the easiest habits and things to do in order to accelerate your own self-growth and whatever endeavor you're trying to do. So you can't reset your life in 1 week, right? I thought in my head, if I just went every day to the gym for a week, I could get a lot of progress in. Sure, I got strong again, and I was able to push myself deeper than I thought I could for a long time, right? And that was great. But it wasn't until I did that for 12 or 11 more times after, for 12 times total, that I finally made that journey once again. I started going back to the gym now for like over 150 times since June 12th. That's crazy. And so I was a little extreme with it, and I think that I even went a little too hard at some points. I had to take a whole deload week towards the end of it. After around 9 weeks, I took a break for about a week. I only lasted about 5 days before I got back in there, but the thing is, I needed to let my body take a systemic rest. But this same principle can be applied to a variety of different other areas of life. If you want to change your work, you want to change your working job, or even just like how you approach work, then it takes a number of times of just consistency of showing up to actually make that change. So maybe you hate your job, but you can spend your time in the evenings working on building a content creation business, or maybe looking for another job, or maybe working a side gig that can later become your job. There's a lot of factors involved, but you have to consistently show up from your 5 to 9 at the end of the day. Like you get off of work, you eat your dinner, and then you go straight into work. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that you have that opportunity, you have that capacity, but you have to choose to do it. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you want to change your life in a short time span, it takes 90 days, 3 months. That's all it takes. It sounds like a lot, but you're going to burn through those months very quickly. And if you can just show up every day, even if you just show up and do a couple exercises, right? Back in the fitness example, that's still better than nothing. There was days I did not want to work out. And mind you, I was going in the morning and the evenings. I was showing up twice a day, most days at least weekdays. And that allowed me to accelerate my progress and allow me to interleave different muscle groups a lot more often. And so, for example, you can find ways of increasing your progress. It takes a few days for your legs to recover when you work them out properly. But your biceps and triceps only need about a day and a half to 2 days. But then on top of that, your chest could probably take another 2 days, maybe 3 days if you really worked it hard. But if you split it up equally throughout the week, you can actually hit those muscle groups 2, 3, or even 4 times in that week. And so you can actually make a lot more progress in that same week compared to the person that's only hitting them once or twice a week. There's a lot of people who are only doing leg day once a week, so that's why they're not making any progress. I, at least on my exercise routine, had 2 days already scheduled out. And as of late, I've been doing legs almost every day. Not because I am doing too little, just because I'm able to interleave them well enough where I'm doing, okay, here's the adductors and abductors, do the sides one day, I'll do the front one day, do the back one day, I'll do all of them another day. I've been doing calves nearly every day. And it's one of those things where you can just flip and flop and allow you to do sculpting of each one over the course of the week. And you can even hit each one more than once too. So it's really nice to be able to accelerate the leg growth just by planning out the week more effectively. In the previous video I posted on this channel, I literally talked about weekly planning. And I think that if you are wanting to do this 90-day sprint, then you need to think about it in the sense of, okay, you have 3 months. In those 3 months, you have 4 weeks each. What are you going to do in that first week, the second week, and third week, and so forth? You don't have to get too granular. You don't have to get too specific, but you do have to start planning things out and trying to think, okay, if I can get this done in a month, what does it take to get it done in 2 weeks? Can I get it done in 1 week? If I really hustle, then try. But then if you fail, get it done in 2 weeks. Boom. Sometimes you got to shoot for the moon and land amongst the stars in order to actually make that progress. So sometimes with my clients, I'll tell them to go for, let's say I had a swim lesson that would go a full lap in 5 breaths. I told the person to do it in 1 breath, and they failed at doing it in 3 breaths, which is a significant margin of difference when you're doing a full lap of not breathing. And they were upset because they failed at getting at the 1. But the 1 is not the goal. The goal was just to decrease the number overall. And so they succeeded. And having that change of mindset, I think, is very powerful for you in order to accomplish this 90-day change.